Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about how you were raised affects how you handle these four dynamics in your marriage. And I have to start with a funny story because it just happened today. Things from our past do impact us today, and they impact our partner. Mm-hmm. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
You know this story, but for those of you listening, simply put, I had to take our Jeep in to get service, and it was going to be there for a few days, so they gave me a rental. Now the rental, there's the standard, so don't pay anything more. We give you like-size vehicle. Mm-hmm. So while I'm standing there, the guy's like, well, you could get an upgrade though. And whenever someone says that to me, I'm like, no upgrade. Just give me what's free. Mm. And just a couple of days ago, Jocelyn mentioned this Jeep Wagoneer, which is, a bigger vehicle. It's kind of an upgrade in the, Jeep system. And that's what they had. And for $15 extra a day.
$15, you guys.
I could have just got that. I know I would have brought it home. Jocelyn would have been like, wow,
how fun.
I can't believe you got this. It's in the driveway. Let's go out. Let's, ride around in it. Let's test it out. We'll pick up Sky in it. It'd be really fun. And they're going to have it for 2 days. So for I saved $30 to not get this experience that would have been fun. It would have been new. And so I bring it up as a funny story. Sometimes I'm unnecessarily frugal. And now this is a funny story, but it does lead into that. Things from our past, how we grew up, our upbringing, and then various things with our parents or as we're early adolescent, they do carry into an impact in our marriage.
Exactly. And so it is hilarious. We were laughing about it. I said, I've never been more disappointed in you, right? Being lighthearted together. So that's a funny opening to something that is definitely important to talk about. And we're going to go into 4 dynamics in particular that we see in our sessions are directly connected to how we were all raised. And I do want to preface, though, that as we go into these 4 and how important they are to a marriage and a partnership thriving, we aren't trying to blame your past. And this is something right now, there's a lot of people focusing on, heal your childhood trauma and, work on how you were raised, and you need to be aware of that. And it is true. Obviously, that is one of the huge tenets of our work, is really understanding where your patterns come from and being able to more consciously change them for the better. But I do want to just preface that we don't want to be trapped by our upbringing. We don't want to blame everything on our parents. It can't be an excuse. And one thing that I just know we need to pay attention to is anytime we start the sentence with, well, I was raised this way, so that's why I handle it this way. Why are those connected? Because, okay, sure, maybe that's how you were raised and that's what you were shown. But was it best? Did it lead to good outcomes? Were your parents thriving? Was your relationship with your parents really healthy and strong? So I just want to say that as we talk about that connection between your upbringing and then your present day partnership, we aren't trying to blame your upbringing or your parents. We just need to shed light on the connection.
Yeah, and I want to mention 2 things on that as well. For me, if you feel that you're getting stuck in trying to identify what it is specifically, I care less about you identifying that and just transforming it. So don't stay stuck with, I can't figure out what it is from my past. If you know what the pattern is and how it impacts your partner now, go to work on that. The other thing about that is, I will say it doesn't even matter necessarily if your parents were thriving, because I think as a child, you are going to make up meaning to things that happen that no one can control. Like, your parents could be thriving in their connection, in finances, in opportunities, and it doesn't always mean that you won't see something make it mean something to you, and then carry that through into relationships in the future.
That's true. The interpretation.
Yeah, so it really does come down to interpretation. So as parents, right, you do your best that you can, but I think there's some just knowing that a part of growing into an adult is that you're going to make interpretations, whether that's how something happened or not. And a part of just the work in growing as an individual is to uncover and then transform those patterns, not because of the patterns themselves, but I think whenever they impact your partner, those are the ones you really want to go look at.
Exactly. So, last thing I want to just add before we get into these 4, which I know you all are sitting on the edge of your seat. I want to know, what are these 4 dynamics? There are a lot of psychology principles to explain why this is. And I know that in an upcoming episode soon, we will cover in particular something we think is very helpful, which is understanding your attachment style. And so that isn't what today's episode isn't about explaining why the connection is taking place. We just want you to be able to think about your present day partnership and these 4 dynamics and be able to make positive changes in them. So I think that's plenty of context and preface. Let's get into the first dynamic that can really affect how harmonious your partnership is today. And that is how you handle emotion. Think right now in your partnership for yourself, how well do you regulate your emotions and then express them? So regulating your emotions means that you are able to realize what you're feeling and be able to do something more constructive to work through that emotion. That can be exercise, that can be going and meditating or journaling, that can be just taking some alone time. It can be going on a walk. There are a lot of different methods for regulating your emotions. We actually have that in our de-escalating conflicts guide, a whole list of them. But ask yourself, how well do you regulate your emotions and then express them to your partner? Is it done constructively? Or if you're feeling something like anger, do you say it with swords, right? Are your words like swords? Are they hurtful? When you're sad, do you expect your partner to say the perfect thing to make you feel better? Those are just a few examples of you starting to reflect about how you handle them. But then here's a second piece, and this is a big dynamic we've been seeing with couples lately in our sessions, is how do you handle your partner's emotion? So when they're mad or sad or down, maybe they're just emotionally down. And of course, there are actually dozens and dozens of emotions. Those are just high-level categories. How do you handle it? Do you take it personally? Do you feel like you need to fix it? Do you get anxious because they aren't connected and happy to you? It's important that we are able to allow our partner to go through their process, and there's a healthy balance of being able to support your partner. And what we talk about a lot is co-regulation, how to co-regulate together, but not to get to a codependent place where you are reliant on your partner and vice versa to work through your emotions. So that's present day. And so what we need to look back in from our upbringing is, what was it like for you? How were emotions handled in your household? And this is where I think maybe we should get a little bit personal, Aaron, and share what it was like for each of us. Of course, we love our parents, but do you want to just share a quick overview of how were emotions handled in your household?
What emotions?
Oh, okay. Say more.
Well, that was probably the best description I could give, a summary, if you will. And I think it was more so whenever there was an emotion around upset, then it was more like, well, that shouldn't be happening, so let's just stop talking. And honestly, it's not the worst thing that could happen. And again, it's not necessarily what I saw or the action itself. I think bringing it forward, does that pattern impact you and I today? Which it did. So pretty much I saw my parents, when there was an upset emotion, if you will, it was kind of immediately just stop talking and
get quiet,
kind of walk away. Oh yeah, be quiet. The conversation ended, went on and did something else, and transitioned or switched focus to an activity outside or something like that, at least for us as kids. And then I don't know, I never saw my parents do anything for themselves. They went off and did something and then then we're having dinner and
Like, it was just back.
whatever else was next.
And I do want to just say before I share mine that I had a great conversation with your dad while we were visiting in Ohio, and because they've been married, it was over 50 years now, right?
No, I want to say 47.
Okay, yeah, they're close, up there. They've got several decades together, and they truly love each other. And their partnership in their terms has been thriving. And I'd say that they really have a secure partnership, because even though they may not handle conflict specifically in the way we teach it, right? They have the ability to know that they're going to be there for each other. So anyway, I could go on this tangent, but I just wanted to more so acknowledge the way their partnership is.
My mom mentioned, sorry if I cut you off there. Okay. I was thinking of secure base because that's a term from attachment theory. And was it my mom this last time that made the comment? And maybe some of your parents make the same comment. Well, we've been together this long. Mm-hmm. And I think what she means is there's a level of confidence and trust and security, meaning each of them can be a secure base for the other. There might be upset and then nothing's really mentioned, but it doesn't at all shake the foundation.
Right.
And they're able to sort of downregulate themselves in their own way, and then they just get back to focusing on things that they feel are more important.
Exactly. So then the quick overview of my upbringing, and specifically around handling emotion was, and I've been, I still process this. I still think about it, but it was turbulent, especially around my parents' divorce. So I witnessed a lot of, whether it was like anger or being upset at the other person, it was outwardly express, like, because I am feeling this, I am going to emit it out into the space. And so it was, turbulent at times. It wasn't calm, healthy conflict by any means, especially around their divorce. But beyond my parents' divorce, you mentioned interpretation. And I think the way I interpreted things growing up in those formative years was as if I didn't know how to express emotion in a constructive way. And that was something I really had to learn throughout my 20s. And I still am learning emotional intelligence as well. So separate from how my parents handled things, there was me not really knowing how to express it in a constructive way, and what part was I supposed to work on myself versus involve the other person in co-regulating with me. So that's been a long lesson, and obviously a lot of what we talk about on the podcast. So with this one, and we'll move to the next dynamic, we just want you to think about that in your present day partnership. How well do you handle emotion? Because ultimately, in a healthy, secure partnership, it needs to be a delicate balance between being able to regulate our own emotions, express them constructively, and also allow our partner to go through their process. Not take their emotions personally or need to fix it or need to make them always, be happier so that we feel more comfortable. So with that said, let's go into the second dynamic that can affect the harmony in your partnership, and that is how you handle responsibility. So within your partnership today, are you someone who naturally keeps your promises? Do you remember them? Or does your partner have to remind you of your promises? Or what about responsibility and the roles? Do you get overwhelmed and feel burdened by responsibility? Or do you take it on? Do you rise to the occasion? Do you join your partner in really giving it as close to 100% as possible? So think about that present day. How do you handle responsibility?
So I can speak to a dynamic that we do see show up. This happens to be more on the male side than female. Mm-hmm. It's if us males, not saying me specifically, but if we didn't have to do a lot around the house as kids, we didn't have a lot of responsibility in the realm of chores or being like overly responsible for the management of things in the home, then, we show up in a relationship and it seems like, well, that's not my responsibility. So maybe leaving clothes out somewhere or dishes.
Having to be told what to do.
Overall cleaning, organization. Yeah. And that dynamic turns into, well, I don't want to parent you. I don't want to feel like you're a parent.
Yeah.
And so that is one way that shows up. But just like you said, the taking on responsibility. Is it that we live this life, we chose to live this life, and there are tasks and things that need to be followed through on so that our lifestyle and our life can work. And so whatever that it is, things in the house, things outside the house, profession, childcare, whatever it is, does it seem like, oh, well, my partner will take care of that and I'm only focused on my couple of things? Or are you coming together, I would say, and really sharing in the responsibility of the tasks and the roles that really keep your life going?
Yeah, I think I'll just say that there's a big focus right now about the mental load topic, right? And women in particular really trying to say like, hey, like we are carrying a large portion of this mental load. And there's a transition, right, between how our parents handled marriage and roles and responsibilities and how it's going now. And so we just have to reconcile how my parents did things versus how we want to do things. And we can't keep going, well, this is how I was raised, so this is how it's going to be done. Again, you have to work with your partner and go, okay, yes, let's understand how we each were raised, but how do we want to do it now? What actually works for us? What does partnership look like for us today? Because the world is different now.
And it also is the point that it's not always the same roles, because in different seasons, if your partner is in a place where things are more challenging for them specifically, or they are overwhelmed, stressed, overloaded, can you be a partner that steps in and shares more so in taking on their responsibilities as well? So it's not like a 50-50 thing. Sometimes maybe it is. Maybe just based on what you've agreed to, but sometimes you may have to step up and maybe you're doing like 80% for a period of time.
Yeah, it shouldn't be
so
forever.
There is a back and forth. There's like helping to level out the 100% responsibility for the relationship and what percent you might play at any given time. I mean, negotiated, communicated about, rather than just be delegated and not necessarily talked about, which also leads to the last thing about responsibility is your word, because there's actually getting things done, but then there's your interpretation of saying yes to things. Is saying yes like, oh, yes, I have the intention and I'll maybe do it. Like I'll try to do it, because your relationship to when you say yes and when you commit to something is going to play a huge role in your relationship.
Yeah, well said. Let's get into the third dynamic that can really affect the harmony in your partnership. And that is, this one's going to ruffle some feathers a little bit, how you handle feedback. So in your partnership today, whether your partner brings up an area of disappointment or lower satisfaction, or hey, could you do it this way instead of this way? Or hey, this is something I'm noticing lately that's affecting me. Whatever form it takes, if it is feedback, we're not talking about criticism, right? We're not talking about labeling or attacking each other's character. That's a different thing. But being able to give each other feedback or share areas of disappointment or places we want to work on, how do you receive that? Do you hear them out? Do you consider it? Do you listen? Or do you get defensive? Do you turn it around on them? We have to be honest with ourselves that when we can't hear feedback, a lot of times it's coming from some cracks in our confidence, that maybe you don't have as high of self-esteem as you thought. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect at always receiving feedback, right? There's a time and a place. There's ways you can approach me that help me be in a better frame of mind and everything like that, right? So that's why we're big on using the family meeting time as a great time for being able to have these conversations, because it's intentional. It's when you both are sharing and you're receptive to each other. But let's say your partner can never bring something up, right? Like let's say it's never the right time. It's you're too tired, or you just got done working, or no, I haven't had my coffee yet. If there's always an excuse, then you need to look and go, okay, do I actually have cracks in my confidence? Do I maybe have lower self-esteem than I thought? Because someone who has high self-esteem, truly confident in themselves, believes in themselves, can accept feedback from someone else. And not just in a professional setting, because we all know that we're going to get feedback professionally and that's how we grow and excel. But in your partnership, can you accept that? So again, linking it to our upbringing, what was it like for you in your household? Was it said in hurtful ways? Or was there never feedback given? Or maybe you didn't receive enough positive feedback. So again, however it went, whether it was too much negative or not enough positive or how it was said, then that could affect your self-esteem and your relationship to yourself and therefore your ability to receive feedback.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Let's move to the fourth one, which is how you handle repair.
Oh, our favorite maybe.
Well, definitely our favorite. And as you've heard us say, this is probably one of the most critical skills. But a lot of this, what we've already covered, plays into repair, plays into what turns into a conflict. Because if you aren't able to handle your emotion very well, you get escalated quickly or you don't regulate very well. If you don't have a strong commitment to your responsibility and your word, it's going to leave your partner feeling like they can't trust you, they can't count on you. So it's going to have them either, stop really sharing with you or point out these places so you feel like they're constantly criticizing you when really it really is your lack of responsibility. Then the handling feedback is going to come off as criticisms. Some out there might say nagging, and all that plays into then the actual repair. So now something has happened, or this could have been simple. This could have been just a simple reminder, and now it's become a bigger thing about you personally. You don't trust me, you don't respect me, and so now you have a conflict. Again, you've heard from us, that's not even the biggest problem. It's just that these conflicts don't end up getting repaired. So they lower your love account, they can lower your confidence, they'll lower your ability to assert yourself and ask for what you want or what you need. So you start to hold things back, then you're discontent and dissatisfied in areas, but you don't bring it up so your partner doesn't know, and you build that pressure within yourself.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, there is a lot here. So overall, how you handle repair, is it hard or easy for you to, we could say, apologize? And if you're listening to us, you know what we mean by repair.
Because we have a whole repair process.
So we don't just mean saying, I'm sorry. What we actually mean is being able to listen to your partner for how your action impacted them and taking responsibility for that, which is really that difference between intent and impact. Or do you hold grudges for a while? Do you wait for your partner to come to you to initiate repair? Or when your partner does make repair attempts, how you accept them. Right. Do you go down this path of repair?
So then you want to think back to your upbringing and connect the dots. Okay, what was it like? Did my parents show that they were accountable to how they impacted someone else? Did they apologize, or were there no apologies? Was there the silent treatment for several days and then eventually everyone just moved on? So what did it look like? Did your parents teach you how to apologize and not be forced into it? Not be like, say you're sorry to your sister, because that's just what we do. That's different. That's not really teaching. That's being forced into something and pressured because I'm the boss and you need to listen to me. And that we just don't feel there's a whole lot of evidence to prove that authoritative parenting really works. It just instills fear into people. But we're not talking about being forced into an apology. Were you taught, hey, here's why we need to be accountable. Hey, here's how our actions impact another person. Of course, many of us did not see this. And we've talked about that on a lot of episodes around repair, even our upbringing and how different they were with that. So present day, you want to be the kind of partner who can be accountable to how you impacted someone else, that does repair faster, that doesn't let the argument hangover last for days. So the last thing, and this is kind of an overarching theme from all of these dynamics, is that when it comes to our behavior and our patterns, we revert to what's comfortable, not what's necessarily in our best interest.
And you could replace comfort with familiar.
That's an even better word, yes.
Because, comfort might lead you to feel like ease or not a place of not having tension or resistance. But as you've probably heard us say before, and it's not originated from us, but we actually don't do the things that are specifically in our own best interest. We do the things that are just familiar, not necessarily that they have the best outcome.
Ooh, so that's like, you guys got to get that, right? So what that means is you have to really be you have to observe yourself and say, my patterns today in my partnership, how are they linked to my upbringing? And is it in my best interest? Is it in the best interest of our partnership? Is it creating the kind of partnership that we truly want? And if not, which many of us, including ourselves, have areas that we are working on, then I need to choose to change those and shift those. So that's what we're here for. That's the journey. And we have many resources to take this further. So for those of you who are somewhat newer to listening to our podcast, make sure you actually dive into our resources. And because we have such an extensive wait list for private sessions, we've created instant access resources, things that you can get for a super reasonable price. You can get it instantly from a few that we already referred to today: the family meeting guide and templates for constructive conversations, our making up and moving forward guide, our de-escalating conflicts guide, and also we want you to come to the couples workshop in Arizona. It's in September of 2023. So a lot of you who are in any surrounding state, join us. Even if you aren't in Arizona, there's a lot of out-of-towners coming to the workshop. But explore all of our resources at meetthefreemans.com. That will also be linked in the show notes. That's where you're going to find our instant access guides, our workshops, and more. But we're here for you, and we can't wait to talk to you on the next episode.